Guys, we're going to have a great show today with Jeff Lester of Hunt Hard Outfitters. I wanted to give you a reminder that Dar Colburn and I are doing a turkey seminar for the Desert Christian Archers and NWTF, I believe, on March 21st at Calvary Church, which is there on the west side of I-17. I believe it's around Cactus. Just off I-17. You can see it right off of the freeway. I believe it starts at 6 p.m. We're going to be doing a video presentation and then a question and answer session on turkey hunting. You can email me if you have any questions. You can go on desertchristiansarchers.org's website. You can also go on my Instagram, but you can send me a DM through Instagram or an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. If you have any questions, I can send you a flyer. They are also raffling off a hunt, Gould's Turkey Hunt with Colburn and Scott Outfitters and gould'sturkeyhunt.com. And it's $10 a ticket. And they're going to announce the winner at the seminar. So if you haven't got the tickets, make sure to check out on my Instagram. There's a flyer where you can get the information to order the tickets. And that address is desertchristianarchers.org/raffles/turkey hunt. It's $10. This hunt is for 2018. If I have availability in 17, we could potentially bump it up to this year if you win the hunt. You don't have to be present to win, so buy your tickets now and come see us at the seminar. We look forward to meeting all you guys, and it's always good to get together and spend some time with the Desert Christian Archers. They're a great organization, and they're expecting a couple hundred people there, so it should be a great seminar. Look forward to seeing you there. Make sure to look me up if you're a podcast listener. Let's get right to this episode with Jeff Lester, and remember the New Mexico draw deadline is March 22nd. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have Jeff Lester of Hunt Hard Outfitters, and Jeff has been on the podcast before, and listeners really like hearing what Jeff has to say. Today we're going to break down New Mexico. We're going to talk about elk and deer and antelope. We're going to break down units 13, unit 15, 16A, C, D, 16E. A little bit of talk about the 16B, 17, and 23, as well as some other units. We're going to talk about 2B and 2C for deer, the late archery hunt, whether that's a migration hunt or not a migration hunt. We're going to talk about landowner tags, unit-wide landowner tags in New Mexico, ranch-specific landowner tags. We're going to talk about how they do the antelope landowner tags in New Mexico, and just how the general process in New Mexico goes. Jeff, since the last time I seen you, how you doing?
I'm great, Jay. Really good. Been busy, but now I'm home. Been applying people for the draw and just getting ready for this upcoming season.
Sounds good. Jeff, we've talked before, and I've talked with you a lot about Arizona Unit 1 and 27 and your expertise over there. But why don't you share a little bit with the listeners that maybe haven't listened to that podcast, but you do every bit as much business in New Mexico, and you live right there on the line of Arizona and New Mexico. Share with us a little bit about your background of working in New Mexico and the value that you see for people that maybe have never hunted New Mexico, and the opportunities and the way the draw works. Just kind of dive into all of that.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Springerville, Arizona, and that's, we're 15 minutes from the New Mexico state line. So as I grew up and stuff, we spent a lot of time in New Mexico as well as Arizona, hunting and playing around in the woods in both states. When I first started guiding and outfitting, of course, it was a good advantage to live where I live because I can outfit and run the business side of what I do in both states. And there's lots of advantages to being and being able to outfit out of where I do, because I kind of, if you were to draw, 150-mile circle around where I live, I'm based right in and around some of the best elk hunting in the United States. So makes it a good place to, run my business out of.
For sure.
As we talked on the podcast before, I mainly focus in Unit 1 and 27 and 3A, 3C, the stuff that's close to us here in Arizona. But I easily run 50% or 60% of my business is ran out of New Mexico for Hunt Hard Outfitters. New Mexico has a lot of really good opportunity due to they don't have a bonus point system such as Arizona. So everybody, every year, it's just a luck of the draw state. You can, a guy could be putting in for 10 or 15 years, and somebody that's just new to the game can jump right in and be competing with everyone else right now because there's no point system in New Mexico. So it gives people that advantage of, a lot of guys shy away from Arizona because of that point. And if they feel like, say a guy's 50 years old and he wants to apply for the draw in Arizona, when he learns the point system, it turns a lot of people away because they said, well, I don't have any points, which in a way they have a good point that, they don't have the points, their odds of drawing are going to be tougher. So I can steer them towards New Mexico and say, hey, at least put in, you have nothing to lose. You can apply for the draw. Under the outfitter pool, you get better. There's a better percentage of drawing tags, and they can also put in on their own if they were wanting to go non-guided. But they can apply for New Mexico, and they don't have to be scared of competing with people with points because everybody, like I said, is on an even keel, and it's just luck of the draw.
From your own experience, Jeff, like how many times have you personally hunted in New Mexico, and does that show that it is an equal opportunity state?
Yeah. So myself, I don't know exactly I can't remember how many tags I've had in New Mexico. I've been hunting over there for over 20 years, and I've had a number of tags. I've had some muzzleloader, rifle, and a number of archery tags there. Throughout the years, I think I've killed 8 or 9 bulls in New Mexico. I could be a little heavy there, but I know I've had some pretty solid tags. Now, one of the reasons I've drawn so many tags in New Mexico is I put in for some tags that are easier to draw that maybe are off the beaten path, but because I know the country so well and I know that there's an area where people might not have as good an opportunity at a big monster bull, but that you can have opportunity at drawing the tag. And a lot of my, for instance, say an archery hunt, when I have clients coming in and different things, I might only get 2 or 3 days out of a 14-day season, say, to hunt. And so I put in myself, a lot of people knowing from the podcast and different things that I love to hunt myself, and I put in for tags all over the West. So it gives me a good opportunity to apply for tags and in a unit where either I want to hunt clients in the future. So a lot of times I'll put in for a hunt that I've never taken hunters in that I can go and test out and hunt for just a few days to give, my own opinion of what we could do with a client in that unit. So
in other words, you kind of guinea pig it, go hunt it yourself, see what it's like, and then if you like what you see, then a lot of times you end up taking guys and working those units over.
Yes, and what I'll do a lot of times is I'll have, I take a massive amount of repeat clientele, and not that I take the same guys every year, but a lot of the people that we take have hunted with us in the past. And so I might take a client 5 times in 10 years, whether that's hunting on a landowner tag or hunting, because they draw the tags. I get that. And what I'll do is I'll take a client that has become a really good friend or something and I tell them straight up, hey, I'm basically using you as a guinea pig, I'll give them a little bit of a discount on the hunt. And sometimes I'll either put them in with me or we'll put them in, and then we go and hunt a unit. And some guys are okay with that as long as they know that that's what we're doing. We're going to go try it and see what it is. And I've had some of those hunts flop, but guys understood what we were doing. It wasn't like I just put a guy in there not knowing, but it gives us an advantage to go hunt the unit and to really give it a honest effort to go see what that unit can produce. We're pretty quality oriented, and a lot of the good bulls we've been killing in New Mexico aren't taken out of maybe the traditional big bull units in New Mexico. And we feel that by giving the people the opportunity to draw the tags versus the quality, that there's some units there that have very good quality but are kind of off the beaten path, meaning they're not on everybody's radar. And, we keep some of that quiet just because we go and kill a big bull in a unit doesn't mean there's big monster bulls running around in it. It's just that we're trying to kill the higher percentage of the quality that is in that unit. And most every unit in the southern part of the state or in the southwestern part of the state, mainly you're talking the Apache National Forest and the Gila National Forest and Cibola National Forest, all those areas have the genetics, much like Arizona, and produce, high quality bulls. So, everything above I-40, you get into the northern New Mexico, comes more out of the southern Colorado type genes. Not that there's not good bulls in the northern part of the state. There's great places up there that have, solid bulls, but down here in the Gila, on average, is your bigger bull units, 34, 36, and some of the other units over in the central part of the state also produce good bulls. New Mexico's an excellent state for elk because it's got elk throughout much of the state, and all of the units have good solid numbers and, have good elk hunting.
How do you see, we talked about in the Arizona podcast on the 1 in 27, we talked about, you've seen decline in quality. What do you see going on in New Mexico as far as quality of bulls, compared to how you've seen it over the last 20 years? What's the trend?
Now, New Mexico has a lot of areas that are a little more arid than Arizona. I guess your northern part of Arizona, and some of those units that are a little lower in elevation, more of a desert type unit. You have a lot of those units in New Mexico, and a lot of those units border units that have, higher country. So, I would say that most of the state, in quality, the reason it stays really consistent is because New Mexico stays consistent with numbers of tags that they release in a unit. And where you've seen big jumps in Arizona, we've talked about Unit 1, how it was traditionally for years it was 150 archery tags. And then all of a sudden after the Wallow fire, it jumped up to 300. Where New Mexico, you don't really see that. They keep the numbers pretty steady. And because of that, people can expect the same type of quality year in and year out. Now, that's not to say that some units haven't been hunted a little heavier than others, because they have moved the numbers up, a little in certain units. But you don't see it as often as you do in Arizona with the fluctuating numbers. And quality-wise, New Mexico, we talked in the Arizona in the other podcast about how Arizona, we shot more quality in New Mexico last year than we did Arizona. And, there's a number of reasons why that probably happened. I mean, the year before was kind of on an average. We did about the same in both states. Last year, we were just able to connect with a lot of the big bulls that we were hunting. We got in there and got them killed. And so that's my hats off to my guides. They did a good job at, passing up the younger bulls and hunting the upper age class that we're looking for,
how much of that do you think is, you talked about New Mexico being arid. Arizona's arid as well, but like 9 and 10 in Arizona are what I would call very arid, where your 27s and your 1s and your 3Cs are, I've got a little more, live water, seem to be, greener, higher elevation. You've got the units straight across from you, east of you, the 15s and the 16s. They're a little bit higher country, but then when you get into the 17 and the 13s and the 12s and some of those, they can be even more arid. How much of that do you think plays into antler growth?
I think moisture has a ton to do with it, and I think it affects New Mexico much more than it does Arizona. Not that the elk aren't going to get the water, because most of the elk are watering on either cattle water, which is drinkers and dirt tanks. And then when you get into the higher units, say in the Gila, you're getting, where they're going to have actual natural water, springs, creeks, stuff like that. So you're not getting, if you were to compare New Mexico with Arizona in a lot of ways, that 9 or 10, like you were saying, which are arid units, your 13, 15's a cross between the two. It has kind of a little bit of both. 13, 12, those are really arid. And then 17 is got, much lower, like desert country in it. And then it's got some very giant, big giant mountains as well. And then when you get over into the 16 units, into the Gila, you're much more like a unit 1 or 27, where you have, some of that natural water, with creeks and such. Still has a lot of, cattle stuff, with drinkers and dirt tanks and different things, but it's got, a little more, natural water. So I just came from over there a week ago. I went over to meet with some ranchers on some landowner tags that I buy, and the Gila is covered up with snow right now. So all the high peaks in the Gila, as well as, in 17, everything right now that's above 9,000 foot has snow on it right now.
So from what you saw the other day compared to in years past, what can you say as far as if you were going to look out into the future, how will it be? Average, above average, exceptional? Like what do you anticipate? What's your anticipation?
We've had 3 really good years of horn growth in New Mexico. That's just been other than 1 unit. 17 was lacking a little last year. They had a big fire in there, and a lot of those elk, I think, moved into another unit. And 17 was a little tougher than normal for us. But horn growth wise, it was 7 or 8 years ago, we had what we called the year of the 5x5, and we had 2 bad drought years in a row. And the year prior is what really happens in New Mexico. So we've had, if they had a bad year a year ago, then the following year, without getting the moisture, it's going to be really bad. And we haven't seen that in New Mexico for a few years. We've had decent moisture throughout the monsoons, and as well as the winters have been, last year was a little bit shy on snow, but this year it's been very steady. And we've had a lot of warm storms come out of the southwest and across Southern California. When we get that jet stream flow, we notice that we've had warm storms, and so we've got a lot of rain, and it might not be snow on the ground lower, but the higher peaks are catching the snow. And, the ranchers that I've talked to said that this year has been, exceptional for moisture compared to years past. So I'm expecting this year to be very good. I think we're going to, have some definite big bulls hitting the ground, and I think it's just going to be another great season. So.
Well, that's a good outlook. If it's shut off right now, it's still going to be average, correct? Like you don't see any way where if it just shut off, moisture shut off right now, that it could dip below average, do you?
No, the only time you might see that is when the bulls are finishing out. You might, that's what we noticed in a couple of units last year. It didn't catch, they went into summer pretty shabby, and a lot of those bulls in those units just didn't top out very good. They had kind of weak fourth and fifths on them, and big front ends. So the way the snow sets right now and the moisture, the dirt tanks are, the ranchers are saying are really, got a lot of water in them, on certain places, not everywhere, but I'm just saying certain places. And the guys I've talked to said that the water situation is really good. And even if it's shut off right now, as long as you go into the summer, and those bulls are really healthy, which they've got plenty of feed coming off of winter, and they've got water. And as that snow melts, that snowpack melts on those north hillsides and stuff, those green shoots will come up in those little bottoms and valleys, and those bulls will find that good virgin grass coming up, and that's what they'll start feeding on. Where they've been browsing all winter, they'll move on to the grass here shortly and start searching down all that green lush stuff that's coming up under the snow, as well as right at the snow line and where the water's been running into the creeks and valleys.
What are you hearing on sheds hitting the ground?
They're starting to drop. It's from now till the middle of next month, the middle of April. That's when you'll really start. They're dropping every day now. Especially the big bulls, you'll get them to drop. Typically, they drop a little earlier than the smaller bulls, but I know of a few decent-sized browns that have been found and picked up. Not a lot. I went out 2 days ago testing out a new pack, and just did a little bit of shed hunting, and we didn't find anything brown, but the bulls are pushing the snow lines, and they're up tight where the greener grass is starting to come up, and I had a guide the other day that one of my guides found a couple of browns as he was out looking. He found a set of about a 360 bull. So they're starting right now. It's every day. More and more antlers are hitting the dirt. So it's just that time of year. So.
Okay, you talked a little bit about the draw and how the draw works, and that everybody's on a level playing field, so to speak, because there is no bonus points or no preference points. I want to back up just a little bit and have you walk the listener through the draw process. They can do it online, and kind of take an elementary step back and walk us through, do you have to buy a license, the different steps, so to speak, and how the process works in drawing a tag, and then talk about the 84, the 10 and the 6 on the quotas, and kind of walk us through how the whole draw process works and how one goes from never having applied in New Mexico to by March 22nd, the deadline, having their information in. Walk through that process.
Okay. So for the listeners that have never applied for New Mexico, like I said, it's a really good opportunity state because it has no bonus point system. So, when I'm comparing these, I'm going to compare Arizona a little bit so you can understand what the difference is between the two. So in New Mexico, they give 10% of the tags to out-of-staters that are contracted with an outfitter. So 6% of the tags are people who apply on their own and choose not to use an outfitter. Now, if you drew in the 6%, you could still hire an outfitter. It doesn't mean you can't go outfitted. But basically, you would do your applications on your own, and then if you drew in that 6%, then you could call any outfitter and book with any outfitter you wanted. Now, in the 10% pool, we do what they call an outfitter draw, where you have to be contracted with an outfitter that's included in that 10% pool, and so you would apply with them. So if someone calls Hunt Hard Outfitters up, we have to contract with them. So we have a contract that they have to sign that they will hunt with us that shows all the terms and conditions, and then we apply them into the draw under our outfitter number. And then that in turn gives them 10% draw odds. 10% of being in the 10% pool versus the 6% pool. Now the 84%, is residents. So the residents of New Mexico get 84% of the tags, and those residents in that state could also still hire outfitters if they like, of their choice. So it just gives an opportunity to actually break it down. So if you have 100 tags in a unit, 16 of those tags are going to go to non-residents. And, you know, that's a pretty good little chunk of tags that's going to be, you know, given out to out-of-staters for those units. Because
so just to be clear, Jeff, 10 of those are going to go in the guided draw that are contracted with an outfitter, and 6 of those are just going to be random non-residents that have applied on their own.
Yes, that's exactly how it is. Yep.
Okay, and then in order to actually go online and apply, if someone's never done it, what do they have to do?
Okay, so basically they have to go online to the Mexico Game and Fish website, and which is wildlife.state.nm.us. Okay, that's the website for New Mexico Game and Fish, and they're going to create an account, and by doing that, they're going to put in all their personal information and build an account, and then they're going to have a username and a password that they will have in their records, and then you can choose your hunt choices for all the different species, and New Mexico has a lot of different species. They have some exotic hunts as well. There's a number of hunts you can apply for, and then pretty much you can just start applying after you do your research on what you want to do, you know, and that's pretty much how it works.
And just to be clear, do you have to purchase a hunting license right there on the spot online? And if you do,
no.
Okay, you do not, only if you draw?
You do. Yeah, so the system is set up that you can click, and you can buy your, so let me use an example. Say I have a hunter that buys a landowner tag right now, and he's going to hunt in the 2017 season no matter what. So, but we're still going to apply him for the draw to try to save him the landowner tag to either sell the tag to another client or another outfitter. So when we apply him into the draw, knowing he's coming this year, I'm going to purchase his license. But there's a box that you can click to have your money sent back if you're not choosing to. So if you do not want your license, you click a button and it sends you your money back if you do not draw. If you do not click that button, they will charge you for that license.
Okay, that's a good point, because in Arizona you have to purchase the license in order to get a bonus point, but in New Mexico there are no bonus points. So if you click the box, if I'm not drawn, send me my money back, I want a refund, that's the box you say to check, and then in essence you're only out the application fees.
Yes, yep. The application fee is all you're out. Now they do hold your money, so if I was to put in for, say, 5 species today, and they charge me $6,500, they are going to bill your credit card for the $6,500. Okay, and they hold that money until the draw is up, and then they will place it back on your credit card if you are not successful. Or if you draw one tag, they'll minus that money out of that and send the rest and put it back on your card.
Okay, and if you let me back up here. So if you go through that whole process and the deadline is March 22nd, typically when do you find out if you drew or not? How long of a period is it roughly?
Oh, you're kind of catching me off guard on that one, Jay. It's
roughly.
I know. I think it's about a month and a half, right in there.
Okay.
I know that when Arizona's comes out, New Mexico's like a week. I mean, like a week after the draw. Typically, Arizona's will come out a week after New Mexico is due.
Okay.
And I'm sure they're in contact a little bit about that. I don't know how that works, but I mean, I've never seen that draw in Arizona come out before that New Mexico's due.
Yeah, because guys, I hear guys all the time. They're like, if I knew I drew a New Mexico tag, or if I knew I drew an Arizona tag, I wouldn't apply for this hunt in New Mexico because I don't want to draw them both at the same time. but I've
Right.
never heard of it where guys can hedge their bet in New Mexico waiting on Arizona. It seems like Arizona always comes out after the New Mexico deadline.
Yes. True. Yep.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, I think, that's probably planned a little bit, and I can see why. I mean, because you'd have a lot of people maybe falling off the draw if they didn't.
Okay. And then if they're going to put in the guided or the outfitter pool, with the deadline being March 22nd, uh, how do you recommend people getting a hold of you? I would assume time is of the essence and as quick as they possibly can. Before, I'm sure you're dealing with it right up to the deadline, but you tell people right away, get a hold of you.
Yes, I have right now I have a pretty high call volume coming in. Just yesterday I was answering the phone all day and had probably 16 messages left on my phone while I was talking to other people. So the best way for me is either text me on my cell, and my cell number is 928-245-2668. That's my cell number, and the best way is to text me that you're interested in applying for the draw, and then I will contact you. And of course, I need your email. And email is another good way to contact us. Just jeff@hunthard.com is my email. And you email us, and then we will send the paperwork that is needed for us to apply you in the draw. And that's important to know, because guys they need to understand that you have to be contracted by state law to apply into the outfitter pool. So I have to have those on record, to where if they were to ever check the people that I apply under my outfitter number, that I have contracts for all of those people in my files showing, which, it's a good way for us to, we basically build a file for every client, and, what his hunt choices are, of course, and then we build him a plan of what we're going to apply him for. So.
Okay, that's good stuff. I want to dive into the nitty gritty of the units and kind of break them down, if you will. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors of this podcast. First, Go Hunt Insider, my title sponsor. Go Hunt Insider and the crew, Lorenzo Sartini and Chris Porter and Brady Miller and the guys over there do an unbelievable job with their harvest statistics, their draw odds, and they've been able to break down New Mexico draw odds. I actually have them pulled up here on my screen, and we're going to get into it. But these are the most accurate draw odds out there. So if you are interested in knowing what your choices are and trying to find some of these hidden gem hunts, maybe you're a hunter that's looking for, a trophy bull. Maybe you're a hunter that's looking more for opportunity. That's where the value of Go Hunt comes in, with their unbelievable draw odds. And with that, the strategy articles, and they give free gear away, free hunts away every single month. They're giving KUIU sleeping bags, KUIU backpacks. They're giving 100 phone scopes away. They're giving hunts. They gave a Doll sheep hunt away. Just by being an insider member, you can be in the drawing every single month. Use the J Scott promo code when you're signing up, and you'll get a $50 KUIU gift card when you sign up. They're going to send it to you electronically. I'd also like to thank KUIU.com. Jason Harrison has been, I've been using KUIU gear since they came out, and just in the last week or so, we've announced that KUIU is going to be a sponsor of this podcast, and we're going to have some cool incentives and promotionals that we're going to be running with KUIU. And it's easy for me to talk about KUIU because I've worn it literally since the first piece of gear came out. That's all I've worn. And I'm a believer in Jason Harrison and his crew, and love KUIU gear. Also, Phone Scope, Cheston Davis makes the best digiscoping, where he's taking any phone, can adapt it to any optic, whether spotting scope or binocular, and you can be taking photos and videos right away. If you use the JScott16 promo code, you get a 10% discount. And then the Outdoorsman's, the Optics Authority, Cody Nelson and his crew, outdoorsmans.com. Cody Nelson in Phoenix and his staff, They are the optics authority. If you use a J Scott promo code, you get a 10% discount there with the Outdoorsmans. I want to thank those guys for their support. And Jeff, let's get back into the nitty gritty of the breakdown of units, and let you tell the listeners kind of what units you like to guide in, and maybe what, to make it easy, we just start with numerically. Let's just start in I know you don't specifically guide in this unit very much, and I know I had a podcast with Tom McReynolds, and he works over this unit 12. Unit 12, let's just start there on the elk. Now we're going to be talking elk, both archery, muzzleloader, early rifle, and late rifle. What do you know about Unit 12?
Well, 12 has some very good bulls in it. It's a very arid climate. Arid, elevation. Not a lot of, natural water and stuff there. It's very checkerboarded, has a lot of private land in it. You had a podcast with Tom, with Black Mountain Outfitters, and Tom has a lot of the ranches in that unit leased, and so he runs a lot of his hunts on private land. And there's very few tags that are available for the public in that unit. And if you break it down into the out-of-state and the percentages that you're going to draw, it's got a very, very tough draw, tough odds to draw those tags. Unit 12.
As well as that, sorry to interrupt, but with it being tough to draw, with it being so checkerboarded and so much private land, it's really not a prime unit for the do-it-yourself guy because of the amount of private land compared to some of the other opportunities and a bunch of the other units we're going to talk about. Correct?
Correct. 12 is, it's got a decent amount of elk in it. You're not going to see the amount of elk that you may see in some of the other units that we hunt, but it does produce some very, big bulls, on average. You can just see, Tom's definitely, they've killed some really big bulls over the years, in that country, so it definitely has the genetics, to produce, monster bulls. So.
Okay, what about Unit 13?
13 is kind of a mixture between, you do have some big ranches in the unit as well, which a lot of the units in New Mexico have a lot of private land, but it's got the Cibola National Forest, and it's got a lot of different BLM and state lands. So there's lots of opportunity in 13. 13 is not a unit that's for everybody. It can be tough at times, just like 12 can be. It's got very good genetics, got some really big bulls in it. But it's not for everybody.
What do you mean?
Meaning if you're going to hunt on your own, you got to do a lot of homework. You could line up 100 guys that have hunted 13, and half of them had a terrible hunt and half of them had a great hunt. And it's simply because the elk are pockety, and they're not, you're not just going to go and park the truck anywhere in the unit and find elk. There's a lot of time spent on the ground, with guides, and scouting and stuff to get you into the elk. So guys that hunted on their own, that are very familiar with it, do very good there. But guys that are coming for the first time, 13 can eat you up and spit you out.
Okay. What about Unit 15?
15, I live, 15 minutes from Unit 15. 15 was, in its heyday, was probably one of the biggest bull-killing units in the United States. It had phenomenal genetics, had awesome numbers of elk. It had high and low country, a great mixture of, elk habitat, and it was just an all-around awesome unit. 15 is way down on my list of favorites due to, now, when we've talked about New Mexico being consistent, most of the units we've talked about are very consistent. Unit 15, out of all of the units we're discussing right now, has a massive amount of tags, and elk tags go through that unit a year. Between your cow, your bull, your landowner tags, everything, I believe it's pushing, 2,800 or something like that. And 2,800 elk tags a year get hunted in that unit. So that's a lot. I know that sounds crazy. And that's why the age class in 15 has been beat up extremely hard. Don't get me wrong, 15 still produces a big bull here and there, but it's nothing what it was compared to 10 and 15 years ago when the unit just, pumped out big bulls every hunt. And
didn't
now
the unit used to be, Jeff, didn't the unit used to be like a 15A and a 15B, and now it's all one unit?
Yes, it's all been, I don't know how long that's been, but it's been quite a few years. When I first started guiding and outfitting it, it was broke up into 2 units. So the 15A was, the Arizona state line over to the highway that splits, between Quemado and Apache Creek. And then it turned into 15B east of that and, over to the border of 13. But now it's all one unit. And so.
And what kind of terrain? What kind of terrain is 15 in comparison to the 12s and 13s and the 16s? What is the country made up of?
15 is a mixture of, it's like taking a 16A or a 16D and mating it up with Unit 13. It's got a lot of that low pinon, juniper, cedar country, as well as it's got some high country with, conifer and ponderosa pine and, big forest country. So, it borders Unit 1 in Arizona and, runs for, 80 miles, clear over to the Unit 13 border. So 15 is a huge unit. It's a big unit. It's got elk throughout the whole unit. It's not as pockety as, say, a 13. I mean, the entire unit is got good elk habitat in it, and the entire unit has elk throughout it. So, they have high numbers. There's lots of elk in 15, but it's got high tag numbers as well. And in the areas that we hunt, it it has some of the higher tag numbers, so that you're going to see more people in 15 than you would in some of the other hunts. You're going to have company on a lot of the hunts as you're hunting. You're going to typically run into people here and there. It's very road accessible. People can get around in it very easy, and it's heavily hunted by lots of outfitters. So there's a number of outfitters that run hunts out of 15.
How does it compare to a 1 or 27? What is it more like? 15? Is it more like a Unit 1, or is it more like a 27 or a 3C, or can you even compare it to anything? Is it like a 6A?
It's more like it's more like 3A, 3C. That's a good comparison.
Okay, so some good bulls, but quite a few people, really good access, which is good and bad because it allows people to really get around, a lot of road access. The further you walk from one road, you get closer to another type of situation.
Yes.
And
I wouldn't compare the unit. I wouldn't compare Unit 15 to anything that you just mentioned in Arizona, like the 1 and 27 for quality. 1 and 27 are kind of head and shoulders above 15 right now. Not
Okay.
that 15, like I said, doesn't have some good bulls in it. It does. But on the average, your average bull coming out of there is a 280 to 300-inch bull.
Okay, and when I look at the Go Hunt Insider draw odds, and if you compare the non-resident pool, which is the 6%, to the guided, if I just take the first hunt there to give the listener a little bit of an understanding, the September 1st through the 14th dates in the non-resident, which is the 6% pool, there's 21 total tags. There's 563 applicants last year for those tags, so 4.9% would be the draw in the non-resident pool there. If you take the guided, same dates, 1st through the 14th, there's 35 tags available, 598 people for that, and it's there's 35 tags, there's 8.7% draw. So when you compare the 4.9% to the 8.7, it's almost twice as good of an opportunity to apply in the guided outfitter pool there. And across the board, when I'm looking at these numbers, in almost all cases, it's almost twice as good. In some cases, even more to apply in the guided or outfitter draw.
Hmm.
Let's talk. Let's talk about 15 real fast. Moisture across that 15, 13, 15, 16, kind of that country. Do you believe that any one area has been hit more than others, or do you believe it to be, relatively the same amount of moisture?
I think it's been about the same amount of moisture. I mean, the storms that come through Springerville and Eager here where we live, typically anything coming across, Southern California or California comes right across the mountain here in Arizona, and then it just continues on. I would say probably down in the Gila, they've got a little more due to the size of the mountain in the Gila wilderness and stuff. It's maybe slowed down the storms and they've caught a little more moisture, but between 15, 13, and those units over here, I mean, I think it's been pretty average across the board in all the units over there. I think they've all kind of caught some decent moisture this year.
Okay, before we dive into 16A and some of the 16s, I just want to ask you a question about the archery dates are September 1st through the 14th, and then September 15th through the 24th. And I believe in years past I want to say they've had 3 archery hunts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but now they do the 1st through the 14th and the 15th through the 24th. Talk about not just specifically 15, but in general, what hunters
the general archery season.
Yeah, what hunters can expect in that 1st through the 14th, and then the draws across the board in the 15th through the 24th seem to be, twice as bad, so to speak, or the early hunt is a lot easier to draw. Why is that? And just talk about the dates of those seasons.
Okay, so you are correct. New Mexico used to have it broke up into 3 seasons. So the 1st through the 24th was broken up into a 10, an 8, and a 6-day hunt. So they had the 1st through the 10th, and then they had an 8-day hunt, and then they had a 6-day hunt. And as an outfitter, I loved that prior to this way, the way they're doing it now, because you get so many people that don't want to hunt the 1st through the 14th because obviously it's earlier in September, and they don't think they're going to catch the rut like they normally would, which there's a lot to be said with that. And then the 10-day season that comes in after that, of course, that's what everybody wants. So the statistics of drawing that have gone way down. A lot tougher draws because that's what everybody wants. Now, with that said, we hunt the first hunt, the 1st through the 14th, and I prefer hunting the second part of that season. Does that mean I won't bring somebody in on the 1st? No, I will. But, typically people are going to be sitting water, hunting water holes, and maybe spot and stalk in open country. Because a lot of times in the first part of that September hunt, those bulls are still patched up and they're just getting ready to break off from each other and start searching for cows. With that said, I've seen that first hunt be very good because the bulls are not with the cows yet, and they're in that transition zone where they're searching and coming in to where the cows are. And I think a lot of times those bulls can be more callable in that hunt than they can be in the second hunt. I killed a bull a few years ago. I had an archery tag, and we had a day to hunt, and I shot about a 320 bull. I think it was on the 8th or 6th or 7th or 8th or something like that, early. And, excuse me, I went on a ridge, and he bugled one time in an hour and a half, and I knew he was there, so I just snuck in close, tight on him, and knew I was in the vicinity of him and gave one light cow call. And 30 minutes later, that bull walked on top of me, and I shot him at 30 yards.
Good one?
Just about a 320 bull, just a nice good solid 6x. And, you know, I only had one day to hunt, and in between hunters coming to another unit that we were hunting, and I had a tag in another unit, and so I ran in there, and I've killed a number of bulls on that hunt with my bow myself. Really like to hunt that first hunt sometimes. I like the second hunt for rut action. Obviously, those bulls are with those cows, and you hear the bugling, and the rut activity is much heavier. But that first hunt for the right hunters can be very, very productive. It's not for everybody, but it can still produce, you know, very good bulls. So.
Okay, let's move on to 16A as an apple.
Okay, in the process of talking about A, we're going to talk about D as well. They border each other, the Gila National Forest. So 16E,
which one's east, which one's west, or do they border north to south? Tell
okay,
the listener how they border.
Okay, so you got 16D that lies north of 16A, and then 16A is in between 16B and 16D. So it'd be 16D, and then 16A, and then 16B. And they're all in the Gila National Forest, those 3 units, okay? And they're all very good units to hunt. They've been burned pretty heavily in the last, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, there's been a number of fires in the Gila National Forest between B and 16A. And D has caught some of those fires as well, but not maybe as heavy as 16B and A. But when we're talking about those Gila hunts, because a lot of guys are going to call, you know, you'll hear people all the time, you're hunting the Gila. And then they get here and they're not hunting the Gila. Like the Unit 13, 16E, 15, that's not the Gila National Forest, but a lot of guys call it the Gila because it's in and around the Gila National Forest. So that's something that Gila gets thrown out there a lot, and it's actually not very factual compared to what the actual Gila is. And 16A is probably one of the top units in the state right now. Very tough draws. There's not an easy hunt to draw in 16A. It's you know, a first choice for a number of applicants is 16A for a number of reasons. It's got big bulls, it's got a lot of elk, and the quality is just really solid. And you know, it's been really, you know, produced some very good bulls here in the last, you know, 3 or 4 seasons.
16A, if you were going to rank the 4 16 units, A, B, C, D, and E, so I guess 5 units, where does 16A rate in quality?
Probably number 1. A is probably number 1, and D is probably second. And a lot of guys would disagree with me there, and I wouldn't say that. D can be excellent as well. I mean, they're very comparable. A lot more country in AA is much bigger than D. You know, it's got a lot of access. There's lots of places you can get in and get around, you know, and hunt different spots and drive 20 miles and hunt a different spot that evening, where in D you might not get that, you know. I mean, you can still get around in the unit, but both of those units are very good. For quality, both, you know, D has got tougher draws because D is very limited. You know, D has got the least amount of tags out of any unit in the Gila, and it's, you know, very, very, very limited, you know, draw opportunities.
I hear a lot of times, you know, D, everyone's saying D, 16D, and yes, 16A is good, but you're saying you think 16A is better.
Yeah, in the years past, you got to go off past reputation. And for years, D was the unit. D had the biggest bulls in it, and I mean, everybody just wanted to hunt D. And for a number of reasons, and it had great elk hunting in it. In all of these units we're talking about, A in the last few years has produced some really, really big bulls due to much of the unit burning, just like Unit 1 and 27 in Arizona. They went in there and they planted the burns just like they did in Unit 1 and 27 in Arizona. And those elk thrived during that time. They were, you know, had very, very good feed. All the, the wheat and barley or whatever they planted with the helicopters. Those elk were in there, having a smorgasbord of, unbelievable nutrition. And that's why it was pumping out some big giant bulls. It's kind of tapered off, and just like 1 in 27 did, it's kind of going back to what it was. Last year the archery hunt was good. It was excellent, but it probably wasn't as good as the last 3 years leading up to last year, where it was phenomenal. A was on fire. And everything's kind of panning back out again, as it does after these burns.
Okay, and so in other words, these burns have created better feed, better open habitat, better hunting opportunities. Elk like it, hunters like it. It's just a good opportunity, whereas D didn't get as much fire and hasn't opened up that country. Isn't it amazing when these burns hit how the elk just thrive? And not only that, the elk move. I mean, I would bet there's elk in D that have moved to A just because of the more supple feed.
Oh yeah, you'll get that crossover big time because, I don't know what it is, and I mean, you get a lot of elk that you get on that transition zone of D, and on that transition zone of D and A, you have Negrito Creek that separates the two. And you'll get a lot of elk that come out of D that will go into A, and vice versa. You'll get A bulls that'll come into D, just like you do in 1 in 27 or 9 in 10 in Arizona, any other unit. It's a border to us. It's not a border to them.
Sure.
So.
Sure. And we've talked about 16A. You started in on 16D. We've talked about archery. Is there one muzzleloader hunt or early rifle hunt or late rifle hunt that you think is better between when you're comparing A and D? You've already said that you kind of like 16A better, but are there particular hunts that you say, the muzzy hunt's usually better on D than on A, or how does it work?
Okay, so that's another good thing to understand. So New Mexico has, for years, what they called a primitive weapon unit, which was archery and muzzleloader only. Okay? So 15 is one of those units. You're hunting muzzleloader. There's no centerfire rifles in Unit 15. 16D is rifle, both hunts. Your first and second hunt are both rifle. Now, could you shoot a muzzleloader in that hunt? Of course you can. Okay? And then 16A are both rifles as well as 16B. And then the only unit like 16E has a rifle and a muzzleloader hunt and archery, which there's very few units that do that. 13, muzzleloader, archery only, no centerfire rifle in that unit. 17, muzzleloader only, archery only, no rifle in that unit. Okay, so that's kind of good to understand how that works, because I have hunters that call me all the time and say, well, I want a rifle hunt. And then they'll say, yeah, I want to hunt 13. And I'm like, well, 13 doesn't allow rifle. It only has a muzzleloader hunt. You can only hunt with a muzzleloader in specific unit. And the units that you hunt that are rifle, usually all the hunts are rifle in there. Like a 23, that's a rifle hunt. So it's good to understand how that works in New Mexico, because there's basically, back in the day, you had to pick your weapon even when you applied. You could only put in for archery or only rifle or only muzzleloader. Now you can put in for an archery rifle and a muzzleloader for your 3 choices if you'd like.
Got it. And since we're talking about the muzzleloader and rifle hunts, and we're talking about the October hunts, it looks like the most of the muzzleloader hunts start on the 14th. Some of them start on the 18th. And my question is, as far as, you get it all the time, this is the question you get, or like 16A, the rifle hunt starts on October 14th to the 18th. The second rifle hunt goes October 21st to the 25th. How much bugling will you hear And is it, do you get that second rut? And it's, I've heard, oh, they're screaming their guts out. And then I've heard guys say, I didn't hear a bugle the whole time. What are your thoughts on those dates and how does it work?
You're going to catch a little rut action in that first hunt. Typically, you might have some of those smaller bulls that didn't get any action in the rut. They'll still be hanging around those cows. And if you have one of those cows come into second, estrus or something, you're going to get a little rut action maybe. But once that first rifle cracks off or that first muzzleloader, those bulls shut up and the rut is done. And those bulls will really start pulling off in that first hunt. Because back in the day, the hunts used to start much earlier, but now they moved in a youth hunt and a mobility impaired hunt. It starts closer to the front of October. And those hunts, you will catch that rut action a little bit. But later, as time goes on, they push that hunt back a week. Now, I mean the start day of the first gun hunt. And, we get the question all the time, are we going to get any rut action? And the answer to that is no, I wouldn't count on it. You might hear a bull here and there. Last year I was hunting 16D in the first gun hunt. Opening, actually the second morning, we got into a little pocket of cows and bulls that were screaming their heads off. But that was the only day that week that we heard that. And when we got on the bulls, they were 300-inch bulls that were with cows. So they were just bumping along, and there was nothing of any size. All the big bulls were already all singled off and by themselves. And with that said, when people are asking what's better, the first or the second hunt, that's kind of a toss-up as well, because I think the second hunt can be just as good as the first hunt, because as those bulls are in transition zone, leaving those cows, they can make it to where they're going to be in those hunts by the second hunt, where beforehand they're on their way there. So I've had bulls show up that I never saw in the first hunt, and then I see them in these canyons, and I find them on the second hunt, and they're bulls that were not there the week prior. So there's bulls coming and going. And, last year, we had a bull on trail cam that we hunted in archery season. That bull was in a completely different unit in archery season, and I found him on the second gun season last year in a different unit. And it was about 20 miles from where he was rutting.
Wow.
So he had moved 2 mountain ranges, and when we saw him, it was a bull that we had seen in another unit prior in archery season, 20 miles from where he was in the gun hunt. And, we didn't shoot him. We passed him up, but he was he was a really solid bull. He had a really distinct, characteristic on his antler that we knew he was the exact same bull. So that told me a lot about, that spot that I was hunting there. And it's a bull that, we'll definitely target next year, this upcoming season, in that hunt, because if he puts on the size what we hope he'll put on, he'll be a shooter bull this year.
Do you find those bulls after the rut, you like you said, you got a trail camera in another unit, and then they pull off and you see them in another area in the rifle hunt? Would it be your bet that year after year that bull is going to pull off either in the exact same spot or in that same general country, as long as there's no change, there's no fire, there's no nothing that adversely affects that? Are you thinking that they pull off and do the exact pattern?
Yeah, I see that a lot in New Mexico. I used to not believe that as much, but in the last few years, I've seen a lot more of that I have seen benefit us. And what I mean by that is we've been able to hunt. I hunt specific units at specific times where I might not be a fan of a certain unit during, say, an archery hunt, but then I go there in the late muzzleloader hunt and hunt the unit. And the same with a unit that I might hunt in archery season, where that's the only hunt I do there is the bow hunt. And after the archery season's done, I leave it and I don't go back. And then I go to another unit to hunt rifle. Because these bulls, as they're moving around, I'm not going to say the unit I'm hunting, but one of the units that I hunt, I see bulls in another unit during archery season, and those bulls go to another unit for the late season. And we're killing those bulls. We're hunting those bulls early, and we're hunting those same bulls late, but in a different unit.
Makes total sense. Let's keep going down the line here. You've talked about 16A. You've talked about 16D. Let's talk about C or B, C, and E in 16, and maybe give a little bit of info about B, C, and E.
Okay. We'll start with B. 16B is the Gila Wilderness. It's got no roads in it. It's got access, trailheads, comparable to like a Unit 27 in Arizona. You can get around the unit, and then there's trailheads that you can go, into the unit 20 miles if you want. Very rugged, steep. A lot of it's burned. Got good elk numbers. Been producing some solid bulls. Not as many outfitters hunt it because you've got to be geared up to hunt B with horses. We do bee hunts as well as the other hunts, but we're not as, we'll hunt the fringes of it at a lot of places where you can just, backpack in and day hunt or, spike out in a spike camp and hunt in there. It's definitely produced some very, really good bulls in the last few years. But it's
how's the bugling in there?
Pretty hardcore rut action in the second hunt especially. Very good bull to cow ratios. A lot of that rough country holds, some of it holds as many bulls as it does cows. So any place like that, you're going to have a lot of rut action, where like say 15 has these monster herds of cows and a group of bulls that's going to go work those cows, where in the wilderness, you don't have as many cows, but the cows that are there, there's a lot of bulls. So you can get some really, really heavy rut action in those units.
Okay.
So 16C, we don't have that on our list to hunt because we just don't hunt C. C's not I've never been a big fan of C. Not to say they don't kill some solid bulls in C. There's outfitters that hunt it. It's just got a couple of big pieces of private in it. And we've never really spent a lot of time and a lot paid attention to C. A lot of guys, like I said, do fine there, but we're just not a big fan of it.
Okay. 16E is in Edward.
Okay, 16E is another one of those units that's got a lot of hard access. It's got a couple of big monster ranches in it that cover most of the unit, and it's got a lot of really, really hard access, and you can't just drive into 16E. It's got a couple of access points where you can get you to trailheads, where you can hike in, but you're not just gonna take a quad and drive into the unit and start hunting, And E is kind of a it's a lot of low open country, a lot of grasslands. Can be a very, very tough hunt for a lot of guys. We've hunted it for years, and we do fine there. But a lot of guys, go there once and never go back because it can be a tough hunt for a lot of people. So.
Okay, good information. But it can be a tough hunt, but it sounds like there's some opportunity if you can figure out how to slide around some of that private ground and get back in there, and it might create an opportunity, but could also have a dud of a hunt.
Yeah, that's the part about 16E is we've hunted it for years. I'm a fan of it because it's kind of been my stomping grounds for a long time, and I like the hunt. But like I said, it's not for everybody. You have to be in excellent physical condition. It is not a hunt for someone who cannot put 10 miles on a day of really strenuous, hard, steep climbing and up and down walking. So.
Okay. 17.
Okay, 17, got a lot of popularity after a couple of really big bulls got shot in the unit. And kind of publicized it a little more. It was kind of something that was not on everybody's radar. The unit always has some really, really big bulls killed in it every year, but it's a tough hunt. Like another hunt that's not for everybody. You've got to be in excellent physical condition to hunt 17, to get into the areas where, most of those big bulls hang out, especially in the late hunts when those bulls climb and get in the rough stuff. 17 has some of the roughest, rockiest ground you can hunt in New Mexico. In the rut, you'll get a lot of those bulls that'll pull off and come down into the flats and into the foothills during the rut with, for the cows and stuff. But 17 had a good, big fire in it last year, and a lot of those elk out of that country, I think, split and moved into some other areas. A lot of those elk probably had come back by the late hunt, but 17 was definitely off last year from its norm. And, we're expecting it to, it's going to produce a good bull here and there, always does. But it's a tough hunt. It's not, like I said, it's not for everybody. I mean, that's one thing. You can't compare all the units in New Mexico to each other because they're so different and diverse in their own way in every area that you hunt over there. As we've talked, 15, it's a unit that an older individual can hunt because it's a much milder area, where 17, it's the complete opposite. You have some of that mild country, but the bulls pull out of it and you get into the really rough, nasty, rugged stuff. I mean, I've hunted in 17 and seen elk that we literally almost could not kill.
Wow.
Literally moved up into almost sheep country, like really steep, rough, cliffs and rock and canyons and hillsides,
I thought I'd point out there, just looking at Unit 17, the September 1st to the 14th on the Go Hunt Insider odds, there's 8 total tags for that hunt, 238 applicants last year, 4.5% in the non-resident. That's the 6% draw. And if you go in the guided pool, which is the 10%, the same numbers September 1st to the 14th, it's 13%. For it looks like 13 tags, 153 applicants. So definitely going in the guided pool, you're going to have, a difference between 4.5% and 13. It's a huge difference. One last unit I want to talk to you about, specifically that you guide, and that's Unit 23. What is 23 all about?
23 is a really, really rugged unit that borders Unit 27 in Arizona. It's a long unit that runs along the Arizona border on the western side of the state. It's got a good mixture of some low country as well as high country. Lots of big canyons. Not a lot of great access in that rougher stuff. So it's got some horseback opportunity and some hiking opportunity. You can hike back into some areas. The elk numbers are not as high as, say, a Unit 27 in Arizona. Years ago, they did a kind of an, unlimited hunt in 23, and it's never really been the same since, because I think there was over 500 rifle tags in that unit on one hunt at one time, or some crazy thing like that. And this was back years ago, of course, and it's never really been don't get me wrong, there's some very big elk in 23, and some good bulls get shot there every year, but it can be very, very hit and miss. And it's just another one of those hunts in New Mexico that if you do your homework, you can really capitalize on it. But if you go there blindly, be prepared to have a real terrible hunt.
Okay, I want to ask you a few things just off the top of just right off the cuff of out of the units that we talked about, 3 best bugling units in the archery hunt. The 3 best.
16B, 16A, and 16B are going to be your top rut unit, top elk, action, size, everything. And
Okay.
obviously there's other units in the state that are very good as well, but those are the top.
Okay. I'm going to go down through the units, and I just want you to give kind of a size expectation, like, oh, you don't see a lot of bulls, but you may get a, average bull's kind of a blah, blah, blah. And, just whatever comes to your head. 13.
13 is a 325 to 340 bull hunt on the upper end. Realistic expectations are more like a 315 to 320 average.
Okay.
But it's sky's the limit. You could kill some monster. You could kill a 390-inch bull in that unit every year. I mean, there's big bulls in the unit.
15.
15 is a 280 to 300-inch average bull hunt, with a few bulls being taken in that 320 to 330, and every once in a while that 350 to 370 bull being killed.
16A.
A is a average, I would say a 320 to 340 bull hunt if you pass up a lot of the younger bulls that you're going to be seeing on the hunt. You're going to see high numbers if you do your homework and you're an experienced elk hunter. But your average opportunity at killing that 350 plus bull in that unit is probably as good as any unit in the state.
16B is in boy.
Boy is pretty much what I just explained in A. Same kind of, same country, just lots, little more rugged and rough, and with the access being the way it is, you're on foot or horseback when you're in most of B, so you have to understand that being mobile in one unit versus another unit is going to drastically take your odds down. But a sky's the limit unit, you could kill a monster bull in that unit because those bulls in that unit are getting in there and getting lost and getting age on them. And you know as well as I do, Jay, you put a unit where elk are getting lost from people and they're getting up into that 8 or 9 year old age class, you're going to kill some big bulls.
Okay, 16D.
D is that 320 to 330, kind of a bull factory. You're going to see a lot of 320 to 330 type bulls in D. And then that next step up, you're going to have to hunt a lot harder for. They're there. They live in the unit. It's got a lot of thick pinon juniper country in that unit. Very hardcore rut in that second archery especially. Can be a super hunt. Also has the mobility impaired hunt as well as A, which is a mobility impaired hunt in the rut with a rifle. Very good for that. Definite opportunity at the 350 or bigger bull in D. If you do, plenty of homework and you're going to pass up the bull that I haven't walked out of D without a 350 plus bull in a hunt in years.
16E.
We're passing up lots of bulls. So,
16E.
E is more of a 300 to 320 average with another unit that you could just swap into a monster bull and kill it. But on average, it's a 300 to 320 bull hunt. You do your homework in the unit, you could kill that upper of 340 or bigger bull.
17.
17 is 17 is one of those units that you could walk out of there with a 410-inch bull and never even know that he was there. You could scout it all summer, never know the bull was there. You could go there in archery season and end up, hunting the biggest bull you've ever hunted in your life. And then you could go there 2 weeks later and literally not see an elk in the same country. I mean, it's and the draw odds from, that you read from Go Hunt explain that, because hunts that, the draw odds in A compared to, say, a 17 are completely different. The reason why is because you've got your specialty, your hunters that are looking for a certain kind of hunt that are hunting 17, and then obviously you've got everybody that just knows that the Gila produces, solid class bulls every year that are hunting those.
So in other words, it's a hit or miss, but 17 could produce. It could be a bust, or you could be a hero or zero.
Yep, hero or zero. That's a great way to look at it. Out of last year, and we talked about this in the Arizona podcast. Last year, out of all the hunters we took, I think we took 49 elk hunters. We killed 44 bulls. Our 217 hunters in the gun hunt, in the gun season, we did not kill elk in that hunt. They both missed bulls and they saw bulls, but we did not. They passed bulls that they probably should have shot early in the hunt that we did not find later in the hunt. Looking for, the upper age class bulls that are there. Now I have a buddy.
Yeah, hero or zero.
Yeah, hero or zero. Now I have a buddy who in the last 2 years has produced a 370 plus bull in a hunt there the last 2 years in a row. But he was hunting one specific bull that he found scouting, and he hunted that bull till he killed him. And so those bulls exist in there. They live there. The auction hunters always look in 17 every year because it's a unit that can pump out a big giant bull. But it's a hero or zero hunt. It can be a hit or miss, very much so. So both of the people that booked with us last year in the unit in that hunt drew on their own and called us. It's not, like I said, it's not on my top list of, applying guys for. But I would hunt it myself again, no problem. You just have to go into the hunt with the right expectation, and you'll be fine. You're not going to see the amount of elk maybe that you see in a 15, but your opportunity to kill that, upper age class elk is definitely always there for 17.
Okay, 23 average elk seen, or average elk harvested.
23 can be very hit and miss as well. It can be a lot compared to the 17. I know lots of people that go there and really take a butt kicking. Hunting 23, you have to be with the right guides and the right people that hunt it and know it. And our guides that hunt that unit are very, very good there, and they always produce there. But across the board, a lot of people don't do very good in that unit. But the guys that know it and that hunt it a lot do very good there.
Okay. So, another question is, other units that you know about or that you've been in or guided in or that you just know of that are not in this top tier, what we've been talking about, but just some other units that are more opportunity hunts. Do you have any units that jump out at you that's like, other units?
The units up north, and the stuff over in the central part of the state, 34, 36, 37, those units produce solid bulls every year. Northern New Mexico up in 6A, those units produce, a couple of really good bulls, and of course they have, that there's a couple of specialty hunts up there that you can hunt the big places from the old Spanish land grants and different things that have, some really good elk hunting, lots of numbers, really hard rut action. But we don't focus on a lot of that other stuff up there just due to the availability of being spread too thin. So we try to stay put exactly where we know that we're going to be producing the best bulls that we can kill, in the hunt.
Sure.
And
let's talk about unit-wide landowner tags versus specific ranch-only landowner tags.
Okay, unit-wide. So when a rancher, we'll give the listeners kind of a easy breakdown on this because a lot of people don't understand how this works as well. So say I'm a ranch owner and I have 5,000 acres of private land. The Game and Fish might issue, say they're going to give me 2 tags for elk usage, So they'll come in and do a study on the land or whatever, and they decide what kind of elk usage the landowner is getting, and then they'll issue him a landowner tag according to that. So then he can take that tag and he can designate that tag unit wide or unit or ranch only. If it's ranch only, that tag can only be hunted on that 5,000 acres. If he makes it unit wide, that tag can now be hunted on 1.5 million acres. It can be hunted anywhere in that unit on public land. So a lot of times hunters will buy a tag and they'll say, well, I bought a ranch tag and I thought I was hunting a private ranch. So outfitters, some explain it very well and some don't. I explain it very well because hunters need to understand when they buy a ranch tag, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be hunting private land. So I only buy unit-wide landowner tags because I don't want to be stuck in one specific area to hunt for 5 days. I want to be able to go anywhere that I need to go in that unit to hunt. And other people may have, say, a ranch-only tag. If the ranch is big enough, then that's fine. But I've always had a strong belief that if the ranch isn't at least 15,000 acres plus, then you don't really want to be on a ranch-only tag. And many outfitters will probably disagree with me, but I've been extremely successful at hunting unit-wide landowner tags due to that I'm not, staying put on one specific, canyon or draw with, a couple of, 50 elk on it.
I just want to be clear too. In New Mexico, you can, as an outfitter, you can buy unit-wide specific and landowner tags, and you can resell those to whomever you want. And those can, until they are, what's the word I'm looking for? Until the hunter actually validated. Excuse me. Yeah. Once they're validated, then no longer. But literally, you could sell a tag to me. I could sell it to someone else, and that person could sell it to someone else to a hunter. Correct? Like, is there any limit on who can sell it to who?
No, there is no limit.
Okay.
And that
so in other words,
and that has become a problem because there's many tag brokers in the game now. So you have people that are going out and contracting these tags with ranchers, and some of these tags are trading hands 2, 3, 4 times before they get into the actual hunter's hands. And everybody's tacking $300-$400 onto it, and the tag game in the last 4 years has erupted. Most of the tags have doubled in price in the last 4 years, and tags that we once paid $2,500 are now $5,000. Some of those $5,000 tags are now $10,000. I mean, there's some tags that are selling for $12,000, $13,000, and $14,000. And it is due to a number of reasons. Obviously, supply and demand is a big part of it because there's only so many tags, and there's people willing to pay the big money for them. And when they're trading hands 2, 3, 4 times, everybody is tacking money onto them,
But most of the time, you get the tags. People, in other words, people can call you up when they hear this podcast, and you can listen to what they're expecting, what kind of shape they're in, and you can say, hey, you might lean towards this or lean towards that. So you can, in other words, customize when people call, and you have a wide variety of landowner permits available to you, as well as you also guide people that draw hunts in the outfitted guide draw, and you guide people that draw in the non-resident. Both, yes. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens? What I've kind of built my business around is I try to customize the hunt according to the individual, to where I want a guy. Hunt Hard Outfitters wants to apply you and draw you in an area where we feel we can take you as an individual and kill you the biggest bull we can kill you. whether that's a 300-inch bull or that's a 350 bull, we try to customize where we are placing you, because when you call me, I ask you a number of questions. How good a shape are you in? On a scale of 1 to 10, how far can you walk in a day? Do you smoke? There's a number of questions that I need to know, because I'm not going to apply you for just any unit. I'm trying to draw you a tag in a specific unit, and get you where you can come as a hunter and you can feel like you have a great opportunity at what you have come to do. And, if you were, overweight and you smoke and you just can't, you can only do a mile a day, then I'm not going to put you in for a 17 hunt. I'm going to put you in for maybe a 15 hunt. So, but at the same time, your expectations might have to come down a little bit. So if a guy calls and he explains that he's in excellent condition, that he runs and he trains and he's in really good physical condition, and he's willing to throw a backpack on his back and he's willing to eat dried food for a week and really get after it, and he wants to kill that bigger bull, then we might put him in for a 16B hunt, because we're tailoring his expectations and what his desires are for a trophy to what he can physically do. The worst thing we do as outfitters, and this is any outfitter, is when somebody calls and they want the big bull, but they don't have the ability to come and hunt with us to kill that kind of bull. And, a lot of outfitters might not tell you this, but I'm very upfront with my clients that I try to tailor that to the fitting of putting a guy in the right area. Because if you're not prepared for some of these units, you're not going to come and have an enjoyable experience. And so that's why I ask so many questions to each hunter that calls, because everybody is not created equal when it comes to that, and you just need to know that up front so that you don't come and have a bad experience because it wasn't maybe what you thought.
For sure. One question I would have in regards to landowner permits and unit-wide permits, every person that buys a tag from you, does it go guided, or do you sell some unit-wide permits and you just sell them the tag and off they go and they go do the hunt on their own?
Okay, so I get this question a lot. A lot of guys call and say, do you do semi-guided? There are some outfitters out there that are offering some of this, but by law and by contract, we have to be with the hunter 2 days in the field with a contracted guide from the outfitting service they drew with. So
I'm talking about purchased landowner tags. Someone wants to buy a unit-wide tag from you. Do you have to be with them, or can you just sell them the tag?
No, the tag, if I had a tag, say, that I did not sell, I could in turn sell that to a hunter, and he could hunt that on his own.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's clear.
Yeah. So if somebody found a landowner tag on the internet, they could purchase the tag as an individual, they could validate it, and they could hunt it without an outfit. Yes.
Okay. I know we've talked a lot about elk, and if people have more questions, they can call and talk to you before the 22nd deadline, March 22nd deadline. I want to talk briefly about antelope, and I want to talk briefly about your 2B, 2C mule deer hunts. First, tell me about the antelope and how it works, and then tell me about the deer.
Okay, antelope in the state of New Mexico can be confusing for a lot of people. Basically what you're going to do, you're going to apply for the draw, you're going to pick your choices, and when you put in for the draw, the state is going to, do the drawing. If you get picked, you're going to get placed on a ranch. And when you get placed on that ranch, that's the area that you have to hunt. So you could scout. You can't go and scout a buck and think in any part of the unit. So you're going to have a specific area. It could be private land. It could be public land intermixed in that you could hunt. but you're going to be placed in a specific area and told that that's where you have to hunt. And so it can be kind of confusing to people because they get the tag thinking they can hunt anywhere in the unit. And in some areas, you can hunt on public lands in that area, in that unit. But if you're getting put, with ranches that are included in the program, you'll be placed on a specific area. So to explain that, I buy a landowner tag for a specific ranch. The ranch is 65,000 acres. On that ranch, I have one tag that I buy. On that exact piece of private, there's 4 public tags that will hunt the same time I hunt. So there's five hunters will be hunting that 65,000 acres for antelope. Me on my landowner tag and 4 public hunters that get placed on that ranch. Okay.
Okay, so that makes sense. And how is the quality of antelope in New Mexico? I mean, they have some of the best antelope in the world, right?
Yeah, it's got some giant antelope. The quality's come down in the last few years for a number of reasons. I think, like areas that we're hunting on, we've had, a lot of coyotes. So you see a lot of, the fawns, up and coming, fawns, and the coyotes are pretty hard on antelope. The ranchers try to do a good job at getting rid of, they fly and aerial gun them and stuff in different areas. But there's places in the state that have just awesome antelope hunting as well, so there's the top units in the state to put in for. I mean, if you draw and get placed on one of those really good areas, it can be an excellent hunt, and it's got some really good opportunities for antelope. Very tough tag to draw, though. Very, very tough tag to draw.
How many antelope hunters, do you take a year roughly?
Oh, we only take 2 or 3 antelope hunters a year. The most I think we've ever taken was 4 in 1 year. And obviously we're hunting a couple of landowner tags, and then last year we actually drew a couple guys, and it was the first time in 3 years we had actually drawn somebody in the antelope hunt. And they actually got caught in Alaska and couldn't make it back for the hunt.
Oh,
so they were actually placed on probably one of the best ranches that New Mexico has for size. It was an awesome ranch, and they just called me and said, we're stuck, and they called on a sat phone and said, we can't get out. We're socked in, and so they didn't even come. So.
Wow. And New Mexico doesn't have the point guard like Arizona does, where, like once you are issued that tag, you're done, right? Like it's you can't give it back.
No. Once you draw the tag,
because there is no points, there is no point guard. But I was wondering if you could get your money back once you draw it. It's yours.
Yeah, it's your tag. Yep.
Okay. Let's talk. Tell me about the 2B, 2C deer, the late archery. People say it's the rut hunt, it's a migration hunt. What's going on up there?
Okay, so we're going to start up in 2B and 2C, Rio Arriba County, and up, the stuff that's up on the Colorado border. For years, it was ranked as number one hunt in the state. There's 3 hunts in northern New Mexico in Unit 2B, and the first hunt overlaps our elk season in the Gila, so we don't hunt the first hunt anymore. We used to hunt all 3 hunts. We would take anywhere from 10 to 12 hunters up there a year. But as time has gone on, the hunt has drastically went downhill. That's not to say there's not some very good deer in the unit. There's some big deer that still get killed up there every year. We've just cut back on our numbers that we apply for the unit. It's not a unit that I just put anybody in for. People that have hunted with us either in that unit or have hunted with us in the Gila or down in this country for elk that know what we're about, we will take them to northern New Mexico and we will hunt that hunt. But it's not I'm not a big fan of taking guys there that are going to judge the rest of our abilities off what that hunt produces now, because that hunt is now a 150 to 160 upper, weekend buck hunt for average. I wouldn't even call it an average. That's guys are killing that kind of deer up there. But even that deer is not just a give me in that unit anymore. The 2B's got a lot of deer. A lot of people think that it's a migratory hunt, and it can be if we get snows early enough. But in 10 years, I've seen the migration maybe one time where the deer started to really filter in by the third hunt in November there. You had deer crossing over from Colorado and coming into the northern part of that unit. Now there's a lot of resident deer there that are what's happened in the last 10 years. A lot of your big resident deer, since the migration doesn't happen like you would think you're killing those deer out of Colorado. But what has happened is a lot of guys have been hunting the resident deer that live there and have been killing those resident bucks. And as that number has dropped of those resident deer, the average of the deer being killed up there is just nothing like it was at one time, So in 4 seasons, Jay, and this is what I personally guided. Myself personally, I took 10 deer over 180 inches in 4 seasons there personally. Okay? And then after that time period, it drastically dropped off, and we're still seeing and killing a good deer here and a good deer there, but nothing like we were, 6-7 years ago. Now, with that said, let's go into the late archery hunt. Now, by the time the late archery hunt rolls in January, the deer have already come out of Colorado, so the migration's completely over. There's many. You're going to see. You can see 200-300 deer a day on that hunt. But the rut is pretty much over. You're still going to see a buck here and a buck there with those, but you got a lot of deer that are loners, and you'll see. You can spot them and you'll glass them up, depending on the conditions of what kind of weather we've had. Depending on if you have warmer weather to where if you don't have snow on the ground, it can be one way. If you have snow on the ground and it's been warm and then cold at night, you'll get that crunchy snow, which makes stalking bucks in that country almost impossible sometimes. But it can still be a really good hunt. I've never, very high success rate for killing in the 2B hunt. For the late archery hunt, we've always killed, some pretty solid bucks in the hunt because there's a lot of deer. You're going to see a lot of deer on the hunt. But if you're looking for that 180-plus buck, you're going to have your work cut out for you, hunting it.
So is the best part of that hunt the first part of that hunt?
Yes, if I'm going to hunt the January archery hunt in 2B, I like to be there, New Year's Day. The first day of the hunt. And then that first week is when we like to hunt it. If the season's 2 weeks long, and guys that have the time and abilities to go and stay longer could, find a big deer and hunt that one buck. They're pretty territorial. Once those deer get to where they're going, they pretty much will stay in those spots. And we hunted a 220 kind of buck a few years back, and that deer, in 6 or 7 days of hunting him, I saw that buck every day we hunted him. So he was definitely
difficult to get to.
Yeah, he was definitely findable. Every day we'd climb on a hill and we glassed that buck up every day, and he was by himself for 80% of the hunt. And we actually missed that deer twice. We missed him at 60 and we missed him at 42. And
wow.
So
what about other deer opportunities in New Mexico? Is it very hit or miss?
Yeah, the deer hunting in New Mexico, which kills me because I'd love to have a really good deer hunt. And, we kind of stepped out of that Kaibab and out of the northern part of the state in Arizona. When the Kaibab started kind of going downhill, we really started hunting northern New Mexico a lot harder, and we were killing some really good deer there. And now, as that hunt has really started to taper off, we're looking at coming back into Arizona and doing more deer hunts in Arizona because, as an outfitter, we could only be so many places at one time, and the guides get spread thin from place to place, especially hunting two state. So we have to pick our battles. We have to pick our hunts of what we're going to hunt, where we're going to be, and what we can ultimately end up at the end of the day producing on the hunt. And not that I love hunting 2B. I love hunting the country. It's one of my favorite hunts of the year. It challenges me every year that I go there. I've been in the unit, with a couple of my guys. Every year we hunt it. We try to not miss the hunt, but I'm just not taking the numbers I did once there, that I did, because we're just not killing the amount of quality that we once were. And if guys are looking for the quality, in New Mexico as a whole is an elk state. They haven't done a lot for, I guess, their mule deer. I mean, the Jicarilla, has always produced monster deer. And it's in and around the northern parts of the units that we're talking about. So the northern part of the state, every year there's big deer get killed in New Mexico. It's not like the state doesn't have good deer hunting. It's got a couple of spots that, are kind of hit and miss, and a big deer gets taken out of them. It's much like, is there big mule deer in 1 in 27 or 3A, 3C? Well, yeah, there's some big deer that get killed in those units every year. But is there very many deer? No. The deer numbers are pretty bad compared to elk, And
when you're trying to do it efficiently and trying to guide it, it's a challenge to be chasing one here, one there, and sporadic where there's, mixed quality all over. It's hard to take people on quality hunts when that can be the case. You're not saying that there's not big deer all over New Mexico. You're just saying it's hard to find an area where you can consistently go and have, more than one or two or a handful of big bucks in the whole unit. It's very difficult to guide in a situation like that.
Right. A good example of that is last year we hunted the Gila. I had my own deer tag in the Gila, and every year while we're hunting, we see a couple of really nice deer in velvet when we're hunting elk, and the Gila deer tag is good for all of the 16 units. So you can hunt any unit that has 16, so you can hunt A, B, C, D, or E in the 16 hunt. And last year when we did that, we were looking for a specific buck, a 190-inch buck that we saw while we were archery hunting elk, and we never put our eyes on him. I shot about a 165 4x4, and my buddy shot just a deer, just a buck, and those were the only two mature deer we saw in 5 days of hunting.
Wow.
Now, like I said, we were there hunting a buck that we know existed and lived there, and we saw him. We just never put our eyes on him during the hunt. So the units have some good deer here and there, but you're not going to compare it to the Strip or Colorado or anything like that by no means.
Okay.
And 2B, like I said, we still go back there and hunt every year because it does have some good bucks in it, and we kill some. We see some. I was hunting a buck in 2B last year. It was a 190 plus buck. I just never got him killed. I mean, he lived there. It's tough country to hunt. We track a lot, and it's just it's a good deer hunter's hunt for a guy that's hardcore, wants to hunt big deer. There's big deer that live there, but your chances of going there and shooting that 180 plus buck are probably 20%.
That's a lot of great information from you, Jeff. I want to give you a chance to, first I want to thank you for coming on and spending time with us. As always, you're one of my guests that I get a lot of people asking for you, and I just appreciate your thoroughness. I want to give you a chance to let the listeners know how they can get a hold of you and where they can find you, whether your website or Instagram, or why don't you go ahead?
If you on Instagram, a lot of you know that we build backpacks and equipment as well, and we have a clothing line and apparel under our Hunt Hard brand. And we just tore down our actual outfitting website. We're currently building a new outfitter website. You can go to hunthard.com, and you can contact us through our gear website. right now. Or you can call me directly on the cell phone at 928-245-2668. That's my personal cell. If you need to call and discuss, your options for the big game in New Mexico or Arizona. And then on Instagram and Facebook, we're both on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is just under Hunt Hard. And our Instagram handle is Hunt Hard _ gear. So it's Hunt Hard _ gear. And that's how to find us on Instagram. And that's pretty much the best way right now. We're getting this new website up and moving from our gear side, and we're connecting all of our outfitter. We're building our outfitter information that will go on the website here in the near future.
Right on, buddy. Well, it's exciting. Get all these apps in, and then it's a sit and wait, and then it's wait some more over the summer and prepare for the fall hunting season. And look forward to seeing you guys' success in Arizona and in New Mexico this coming fall. And wish you the best of success. And congrats on your success last year on your personal hunts in Utah and Arizona, and we'll see if lightning strikes and you can draw again. But I know you run a great business. You've got a great reputation, and I appreciate you coming on here and just open booking it with us and giving us all the down to earth scoop on all these units. And I want to encourage the listeners to reach out to Jeff and chat some more with him. And I just appreciate you coming on here. Okay.
Well, I appreciate it too, Jay. You run a great podcast, and it's really good to. I appreciate you having me on here to give the listeners a lot of the information that you provide. Gives people, when we're outfitting and we're out selling hunts at shows and different things, we answer a lot of the same questions every day. And obviously I'm answering a lot of those same questions now, but this gives a good opportunity for your listeners to come back and re-listen to what we've talked about, and the other people and good guests that you have on here gives them that insight, and they can come back and listen to it again and again to make sure that they understand the way that all these different states work. So I really think that's good service that it provides for you. So.
Sounds good, buddy. Well, take care and pat those kiddos for me. And you got 3 little ones under 3, don't you?
Yeah. So actually, I have 2 older kids, 15 and 13, and then I have my youngest. One of my younger sons, Jax, actually turns 4 today, and then I have 2 under him. So I basically have a 2.5-year-old, a 4-year-old now, and a baby girl that's 9 months old.
And your wife's calling you to announce that you got twins on the way.
No, it's official. It's official. We're done. The plan was 1, and we had 3, and so at this stage of the game, I'm 42. I don't need to have kids when I'm 72 and that. But I'll be doing a lot of hunting when I'm 60 with these kids. I can tell you that.
That's awesome, buddy. All right. God bless. Take care. Okay.
Okay. All right, Jay. Thank you.
All right.